Africa holds 60% of the world uncultivated lands. It is on over 30% of the planet's mineral resources. Gold, platinum, diamond, lithium, cobalt, oil, name it. The Democratic Republic of Congo alone has minerals worth over 24 trillion US dollars. 24 trillion US dollars. And yet in 2026, 490 million Africans are living in abject poverty. How is that possible? How does the richest continent on earth produce the poorest people? Today, we're going to answer those questions, and then we're going to answer it honestly, without excuses. Just stay with me. Let's start with the facts, because some people believe that we don't have enough resources in Africa. That is why we're poor. Nigeria is the largest oil producer in Africa. It has exported over 600 billion oil revenue since the 1970s. Where did the money go? South Africa has the world's largest platinum reserve. Zimbabwe has enough lithium that can power the global electric vehicle revolution we have now. Ghana produces gold that trade in New York and London. So the problem is not wealth, it is management. African government today face a more selective and politicized global financial environment and decision, and also decisions about how to manage resources, debts, and investment will determine the future of Africa. But the big question is, who makes the decisions and in whose interest? Number one is this: the African leaders are supposed to be the ones making our African decisions. And it should be for the interest of Africa. But unfortunately, they are not the ones. African leadership has failed African people. I will say it very clearly, totally. And then, Africa's vast natural resources and human resources have not translated into sustained prosperity due to persistent governance and leadership deficit. There has been this kind of mismanagement that makes you think like we have leaders, but we don't have. Our leaders have looted treasuries, like everything. They have signed unfavorable deals with foreign corporations. They have prioritized staying in power over building institutions. They have suppressed opposition, manipulated elections like we have in Nigeria and so many in Kenya and so many other African countries. They have prioritized passing wealth to the small elite caucus, and they leave the majority to suffer. But so when we talk about this problem of why we have a lot of poor Africans, we can't push it further than the fact that African leaders should be at the front burner of it. But here is what I want to push deeper, because blaming African leaders alone is too easy and it is incomplete. Elections continue to be a defining stress test for African governance, and civic actors have stepped in to ensure electoral integrity. But they are no substitute for genuine political leadership. Talking about African poor people without stating categorically that the external factors are actually the unseen hand playing everything would be an incomplete statement. The poverty of Africa is not just a failure of African leaders. No. It is also a design. It is an intentional system built over centuries and still running to date. When did it start? It started during slavery, continued through colonialism, which is the extraction of land, labor, resources from Nigeria, from Kenya, from South Africa, from different African Congo to the West. It continued. It made them build a kind of system that designated Africa as an extractive continent, so that we can only send our raw materials out and only buy finished goods. It is as if it is a creed written. That was why in the Berlin Conference, I think 1814 or 1818, they sat down and they, cut Africa like loaf of bread, installed borders where there is none, and made sure we remain divided and keep fighting each other while they extract and take away our resources. And it has been going on for centuries, such that we are now taking it as normal. Take for instance, recently, Gulf states like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar have expanded investments in logistics, in agriculture, in energy, into Africa. The EU is repositioning itself through green transition financing and critical mineral resources. Everything is going to be happening. Like this year, 2026, we are going to be having a lot of African summits with France, with Italy, with Turkey, and with Russia. But on the surface, you might think, this is a beautiful partnership. But ask yourself, why is every major power suddenly interested in Africa? The answer is resources. Cobalt for batteries, lithium for electric vehicles, land for food security. And that of land, you see what Bill Gates is doing with our food. So my issue with this external influence is that they are now trying to formalize it, make it seem as though there's no harm in it. But actually, it will create a kind of dependence mindset in us that we might think like access to bilateral financing and security guarantees can offer us all what we want. But the truth of the matter is that it will only offer a short-term relief. But without accompanying institutional reforms in Africa, we're going to remain dependent on these Western world. Where are they coming? Africa keeps being offered loans instead of fair trade, aid instead of sovereignty, and too many of our leaders accept those terms. So is there hope? Yes, but that is if we are honest. The number one thing we have to do is institutional accountability. Building public trust in institutions is the foundation of better governance. Without accountability, this thing that you see, a local government chairman has 4 billion to do project and he only spends 1 billion. Then 3 billion just flies and we just keep quiet. And then there is no institution to checkmate the activity of the local government chairman. Then there is this thing we call social contract between the citizen and the state. Once it's broken down, there's nothing you can do about it except you have to rebuild it. The number two is that we need African-led solutions. Oh God. African development ambitions will not be realized through leadership model mirrored or designed like that of the West or Chinese or any other people. It has to work with our own framework, built with our own history, culture, and context. The number three is that citizens' pressure. You know, when people protest, and there's always all these protests, where would they do, or all these protests we do here in Africa, what has it resulted? Don't allow anybody fool you. If protests don't mean anything, they will not crack down on anybody. I give kudos to the countries, Nigeria, Senegal, Kenya, that have shown that when people, that they can stand up to injustice and tell them that it's not going to happen. The truth of the matter is that leaders behave when citizens remind them or demand of it. Then the number four is economic integration. Initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area shows that African-led cooperation is possible and remains the most viable pathway to our independence and stability. We need to come together, trade between each other, and do things together. It's not every time we depend on China and depend on every other person. Closing today's video, the real reason Africa is still poor, despite its wealth, is this: a combination of external governance failure and a very big an external global system designed to keep the continent perpetually poor and as an extractive continent. Both are true. Both must be challenged. That is what Mind Affair is here to do. Keep this conversation going. If this video opened your eyes, even one bit, please share it. One share can put this in front of so many people and can help the YouTube algorithm spread my video so that many people can actually see it and have a rethink. Subscribe if you haven't. Comment below. I would want to see your comment. Do you think African leaders are the main problem, or is the global system more to blame?